The market on the alien world of Kalor was loud and brutal. Merchants shouted prices, guards barked orders, and the stench of rotting food clung to the air. In the alleys behind the stalls, broken crates and half-eaten scraps were piled in heaps, ignored by the rich who walked past without a glance. It was there in the filth that the little alien girl crawled. Her frame was thin, her ribs visible beneath her lavender skin. Her silver eyes, once bright, were now dull from hunger. She wore rags that barely clung to her small body. When no one was looking, she scrambled on her hands and knees toward a pile of discarded food, grabbing what she could before the rats claimed it. She ate fast like a starving animal, shoving the scraps into her mouth before someone could strike her for stealing. People noticed her but only muttered with disgust. "Look at that thing," one merchant sneered. "Crawling like a dog. Pitiful," another said. "Her kind belongs in chains or graves, not in our streets." The little girl ignored them. She had no choice. Hunger screamed louder than their insults. That was when a shadow fell over her. She froze, clutching a half-rotten piece of bread to her chest. Slowly, she lifted her gaze and saw him. A human. Marcus was taller than most around him, his clothes patched from travel, his face scarred from battles fought far from here. His eyes, however, were steady and kind. Unlike the others, he didn't look at her with disgust. He looked at her as if she mattered. For a long moment, neither moved. Then Marcus crouched down, lowering himself to her level. His voice was calm, almost gentle. "Hey, are you hungry?" The girl blinked, unsure if it was a trick. She tried to back away, but Marcus didn't reach for her. Instead, he opened his pack and pulled out a piece of fresh bread. He tore it in half and placed it on the ground in front of her. "Take it," he said softly. "It's yours." The girl hesitated. No one had ever given her food freely. She sniffed the bread, waiting for the sting of a slap, the shout of a guard. When nothing came, she snatched it up and devoured it. Marcus watched her with quiet sadness. He had seen war, seen soldiers fight and die, but this, watching a child forced to eat like an animal, cut deeper than any wound. When she finished, crumbs still on her lips, she looked up at him. For the first time, he saw a flicker of something in her eyes, not just hunger, but pride. Pride buried so deep it was almost gone. "What's your name?" Marcus asked. She shook her head quickly, fear in her eyes. Names were dangerous. Names gave others power. "All right," Marcus said gently. "Then I'll just call you Little One." The girl tilted her head, confused by his tone. No one had spoken to her like that before. Then, without warning, a guard's voice shouted, "You there, human! Step away from the filth!" Marcus stood slowly, his hand instinctively brushing against the handle of the worn blade at his hip. The guard, a towering alien in polished armor, sneered at the girl. "This creature has no right to eat. Let her starve," something in Marcus snapped. He stepped in front of the girl, blocking the guard's view. "She's just a child," he said firmly. "Leave her alone." The guard laughed. "A child? That thing? She's nothing but a stray." Marcus's eyes narrowed. "No, she's more than that. You just don't see it." The guard reached for his weapon, but Marcus's voice cut like steel. "Try it and you'll regret it." The marketplace went silent. Merchants and passers-by turned to watch, whispering about the foolish human who dared stand against the guards. Behind Marcus, the little girl stared up at him in shock. No one had ever defended her. No one had ever stood between her and the cruelty of the world. In that moment, something changed inside her. She no longer felt like an animal in rags. She felt seen, like maybe, just maybe, she was worth something. The guard growled, but finally spat on the ground and walked away. "Not worth the trouble," he muttered. The crowd dispersed, disappointed that no blood was spilled. Marcus knelt again, offering the girl another piece of bread. This time she took it slower, her small hands trembling. "You're not trash," Marcus said quietly. "You're not a dog. You're something more. One day, you'll see it too." The little alien girl didn't understand everything he said, but the warmth in his voice wrapped around her like a cloak. For the first time in her life, she believed she might be more than the world told her she was. And though neither of them knew it yet, this meeting between a broken human and a starving alien girl would change not just their lives, but the fate of worlds. The market returned to its noisy rhythm after the guard walked away, but whispers followed Marcus wherever he went. A human standing up for a starving alien child was not something people forgot quickly. He kept walking, the little girl trailing behind him. She stayed close but not too close, her wary eyes darting around. as if expecting someone to grab her at any moment. Marcus stopped at a food stall and bought more bread and dried meat with the few coins he had left. The merchant sneered as he handed it over. Wasting good food on street trash? Humans really are fools. Marcus ignored the insult. He handed the food to the girl, who hesitated before taking it. She tore into the bread like it might vanish if she waited too long. He watched her eat and felt a pang of anger. Anger at the world that let a child live like this. When she was done, he crouched beside her. You can't stay in the alleys. You'll die out here. The girl's silver eyes flickered. She shook her head, clearly afraid. Marcus softened his voice. I'm not here to hurt you. If you want, you can come with me. Just for tonight. Somewhere safe. She studied him for a long moment, then gave the smallest nod. That night, Marcus took her to the abandoned freighter where he'd been living since his last job ended. It wasn't much, just a rusty hull with a working heater and a thin blanket, but it was better than the streets. The girl sat curled in the corner, clutching the blanket tightly. She didn't speak, but Marcus noticed the way her eyes scanned the walls, cautious and alert, like someone who had learned never to trust safety. He made a small fire in a metal canister and warmed the food he had left. As he handed her a piece, he asked softly, Don't you have anyone? Family? She shook her head quickly, her hair falling into her face. Marcus sighed. Then you do now, at least for as long as you need. For the first time, her lips parted as if she wanted to say something. Her voice came out quiet, almost a whisper. Aya, Marcus blinked. Aya, is that your name? She nodded, clutching the blanket tighter. He smiled gently. Aya, that's a strong name. She looked down, embarrassed, but he could see a faint spark in her eyes. Over the next few days, Aya followed Marcus everywhere. He bought her better clothes from a second-hand trader, though people mocked him for wasting his money. When they walked through the streets, whispers chased them. Look at the human and his pet. He feeds her like a dog, now he drags her around. Disgusting. Marcus ignored them all. Aya kept her head low, but he noticed the way her fists clenched whenever she heard the insults. One evening, as they passed through a quieter district, a group of local thugs blocked their path. The leader, a heavy-set alien with cruel eyes, sneered at Aya. Well, well. The little rat found herself a master. Tell me, human, how much did you pay for her? Marcus stepped in front of Aya. Keep walking, he said coldly. The thug laughed and shoved him. Or what, you'll fight for this trash? Marcus's jaw tightened. He grabbed the thug's wrist and twisted hard, sending him sprawling. The others backed away as Marcus's hand dropped to the knife at his belt. Next one who touches her loses more than his pride. The thugs muttered curses but retreated. Aya peeked out from behind Marcus, her eyes wide. She had expected him to abandon her, like everyone else had before. Instead, he had stood firm. Later that night, while they sat in the freighter, Aya finally spoke more than one word. Her voice was hesitant but stronger. Why? Marcus looked at her. Why what? Why, help me? Everyone says I'm nothing. Marcus leaned back against the wall, staring at the flickering heater light. Because they're wrong. You're not nothing. When I look at you, I don't see trash. I don't see a dog. I see someone who could be more than any of them. I see a queen. Aya blinked, shocked. No one had ever called her anything close to that before. She didn't understand the word fully, but she felt the weight of it. Her chest tightened, and for the first time in years, tears filled her eyes. Marcus reached out and gently placed a hand on her shoulder. Don't let them decide who you are, Aya. You decide that. The next day, whispers spread again, but this time different ones. A few merchants who had seen Aya more closely muttered among themselves. Those eyes, one said, silver like the lost royal line. It can't be. That bloodline was erased long ago. But what if it isn't? What if the child isn't just a stray? Marcus didn't hear them, but Aya did. She didn't understand everything, but she knew one thing. Something about her past was bigger than she realized. And Marcus, the human who had seen a queen and a starving girl, had just stepped into a storm neither of them could escape. The days that followed grew tense. Aya no longer crawled through alleys for scraps. She walked beside Marcus, her steps steadier, her eyes sharper. But while she began to look less like a starving child, the stares from others only grew colder. The stares from others only grew colder. Some spat at the ground when they saw her. Others whispered behind their hands, their gazes filled with both fear and curiosity. Marcus noticed, but he kept walking, always keeping her close. Aya, however, heard the whispers more clearly than he did. Silver eyes. Could it be? No, the royal line was wiped out. But look at her, she carries it. One night, Aya sat by the heater inside Marcus's old freighter. She hugged the blanket he'd given her and stared at him with quiet intensity. Finally, she asked, "What's... Queen?" Marcus paused, caught off guard. He set down the small tool he'd been tinkering with and looked at her. A queen is someone who leads, someone who people look up to. Not because they're afraid, but because they believe in her. She's strong, but she also protects the weak. Aya's brows furrowed. Like you? Marcus chuckled softly. No, not like me. Like you, Aya, you just don't see it yet. Aya frowned, unsure if he was serious. But something in the way he said it planted a seed in her heart. A seed that frightened her as much as it gave her hope. The next day, Marcus went into the market to buy supplies. Aya followed close behind, but this time, trouble found them faster. 3 armored enforcers blocked their path, their faces hidden behind metal masks. The leader's voice was cold. You there, human, hand over the girl. Marcus's hand drifted toward his belt. Why? She is marked, the enforcer said. Silver eyes. The council has claimed her bloodline is forbidden. If she lives, she's a threat. Aya froze, her chest tightening. Marcus stepped in front of her. She's a child. Not a threat, the enforcer tilted his head. Then you will die for her. The first strike came fast, a spear thrust aimed at Marcus's chest. He barely dodged, grabbing Aya and pulling her behind him. With his other hand, he swung the metal pipe he carried, slamming it against the enforcer's arm. The clang echoed through the street, startling bystanders. Aya stumbled back as Marcus fought. His movements were quick, but the enforcers were trained, disciplined. A blow caught Marcus across the shoulder, sending him to the ground. Aya's heart raced. For a moment, she felt powerless again, like the starving girl in the alleys. But when she saw Marcus bleeding, something inside her sparked. She grabbed a handful of gravel and hurled it at the enforcer's face. The strike was clumsy, but it distracted him long enough for Marcus to roll to his feet and land a hard strike to the back of the man's helmet. The enforcer staggered, and Marcus grabbed Aya's hand. Run! They sprinted through the crowded market, weaving between stalls as shouts and horns erupted behind them. People scattered, some cursing, others too afraid to interfere. Aya's small legs burned, but Marcus never let go of her hand. Finally, they ducked into a narrow passage between 2 buildings. Marcus pressed her against the wall, his chest heaving. Are you hurt? Aya shook her head quickly, though her hands trembled. Why do they want me? Marcus wiped the blood from his lip. Because they're afraid. And people who are afraid will do anything to stay in control. Aya looked down, her silver eyes glistening. I don't understand. I'm not a queen. I'm just... Aya? Marcus crouched so he could meet her gaze. His voice was steady, even as sirens wailed in the distance. You're Aya, and that's enough. But maybe one day you'll be more than they ever imagined. For now, what matters is this: you're not alone anymore. Aya blinked, her chest tightening. She whispered softly, Promise? Marcus smiled faintly and ruffled her hair. Promise. That night they returned to the freighter, but the tension in the air was thick. Marcus patched the cut on his shoulder while Aya watched silently. When he noticed her expression, he asked, What's on your mind? She hesitated before saying, You fight for me. You see me as queen. But if I'm from them, maybe you'll leave me too. Marcus's voice hardened. Listen to me. I don't care what blood runs in your veins. I don't care if the council calls you forbidden. You're Aya, and I will never leave you. Her eyes filled with tears, but this time they weren't from fear. For the first time in her life, she believed someone. Outside, however, word of Aya's presence was spreading fast. The council's enforcers were already moving in greater numbers. Whispers of a silver-eyed child had reached ears far beyond the market. And soon Aya would learn that Marcus wasn't the only one who saw her as more than a starving girl. Others, powerful and dangerous, were beginning to see her too, not as a queen of hope, but as a threat to destroy. The city of Kaelor never truly slept. Even at night, lanterns burned and markets whispered with secret trade. But for Marcus and Aya, the city had become a cage of shadows. The enforcers were searching every district, their horns echoing through the streets, their armored boots pounding on stone. Aya clung to Marcus's hand as they slipped through alleys, her silver eyes reflecting the dim light. Keep low, Marcus whispered, his voice steady but urgent. If they see you, they won't stop until you're gone. Aya nodded, but fear churned in her chest. She had lived her whole life being ignored, invisible. Now, suddenly, everyone wanted to find her. They reached the old spaceport on the edge of the city, a graveyard of broken ships, hulls gutted and abandoned. Marcus had always used it as a shortcut, but tonight it felt different. Tonight it was their only chance to disappear. As they crept between rusting freighters, a voice cut through the silence. "You won't make it out this way." Marcus spun, knife in hand. Aya ducked behind him. From the shadows, a figure stepped forward, an older alien cloaked in tattered robes. His face was lined with age, his eyes glowing faintly with wisdom rather than malice. "Who are you?" Marcus demanded. The old man raised his hands in peace. "A friend, or perhaps the only one who can help you." His gaze shifted to Aya and his voice softened. "Silver-eyed child, I never thought I'd see one of your kind again." Aya's breath caught. You know me?" The man nodded slowly. "I know what you are, and why they hunt you." Marcus kept his knife raised. "Start talking." The old man's eyes lingered on Aya. She is not just a street orphan. She carries the blood of the last royal line of Kalor, the House of Lysera. They were betrayed and slaughtered long ago because they believed in unity, not division. The council erased their memory, calling them forbidden. But the blood survived, hidden in her. Aya's knees weakened. "Royal, me?" Marcus frowned, glancing at her. "That's what people have been whispering. But why her? She was starving in the dirt," the man sighed. "That is why the council left her alive. They believed no one would ever see her worth. If she grew up nameless, hungry, broken, then the bloodline would die quietly. But you," his gaze shifted to Marcus. "You saw her. You gave her food. You gave her dignity. And now the spark has returned." Marcus tightened his grip on his knife. "So what? Now they want her dead because she's a threat to their power?" The old man's eyes hardened. "Not just dead. Erased. If she claims her bloodline, it will undo everything they built on lies. She is not a dog, human. She is their rightful queen." Aya shook her head quickly, her chest tight. "No, I'm nothing like that. I'm just Aya." The man knelt before her, his voice calm. "Aya, you are both. A girl who ate scraps, and a queen who can change everything. The choice will be yours." Marcus lowered his knife slightly, but suspicion lingered. "Why tell us this? What do you want?" The old man's eyes flickered with sorrow. "Because I failed once. I served her family. I swore an oath to protect them, but when the council struck, I survived while they fell. I've waited years for a sign the bloodline lived. Now here you are." Aya's hands trembled. She looked at Marcus, tears in her eyes. "I don't want this. I don't want to be hunted." Marcus knelt in front of her, resting his hands on her shoulders. "Aya, listen. You don't have to be anything they say. You don't have to be a queen if you don't want to. But you are not nothing. And if they're afraid of you, then maybe that means you're stronger than you think." Aya swallowed hard. She didn't understand the weight of destiny, but she understood one thing. Marcus believed in her, even when she didn't believe in herself. The old man straightened. "They are closing in. If you stay here, you will be caught. But there is a sanctuary beyond the desert, a place where her bloodline is still remembered. I can take you there." Marcus hesitated, studying him. "And if this is a trap?" The man's expression was steady. "Then kill me. But if I speak truth, it may be the only chance she has." Before Marcus could reply, the distant sound of horns grew louder. Torches flickered through the spaceport ruins. Enforcers were coming. Marcus grabbed Aya's hand. "We don't have a choice. We run." The old man nodded, pulling his hood tighter. "Then follow me." They slipped into the shadows, the three of them weaving between broken ships. Aya's heart raced, fear clawing at her chest. But beneath it all, something else stirred, something Marcus had planted in her. For the first time, she wondered if she wasn't just Aya, the starving girl. Could she truly be Aya, the queen? The night air outside the city was sharp and dry, carrying the scent of sand and stone. Aya clung to Marcus's hand as they followed the robed old man into the desert. Behind them, the horns of the enforcers echoed faintly, but the ruins of the spaceport and the endless dunes swallowed most of the sound. Marcus walked with steady determination, though exhaustion pressed against his shoulders. He had been running and fighting for days, yet every time he looked at Aya, frail but unbroken, he found the strength to keep moving. The old man, whose name they learned was Corin, moved with surprising speed despite his age. His robes flowed with each step, his staff leaving deep marks in the sand. "We must reach the sanctuary before dawn," he said. "The desert hides many things, but the council has eyes even here." Aya's bare feet sank into the cold sand. She stumbled once, but Marcus caught her, lifting her onto his back without hesitation. She pressed her cheek against his shoulder, silent but comforted. Hours passed, the moon shifting overhead. The dunes stretched endlessly, their shapes shifting like waves. Finally, Aya whispered, "Marcus, why do you stay?" He glanced over his shoulder at her. "What do you mean?" "You could leave me. Everyone else did." Her voice cracked, though she tried to sound strong. "But you keep fighting for me." Marcus kept walking, his boots crunching in the sand. "Because I know what it's like to be thrown away. Back on Earth, I was just another soldier. When the wars ended, nobody cared what happened to me. I wandered half alive. But when I saw you, I saw someone worth standing for. Maybe the universe gave me a second chance through you." Aya's silver eyes shimmered. She tightened her arms around his neck, whispering, "Then I'll never leave you either." Corin glanced back, his face unreadable. "Strong bonds are dangerous," he said. "They make you vulnerable. But they also give you strength beyond what you think you have. Remember that." By dawn, they reached a rocky canyon that cut through the desert. Hidden between its cliffs was a narrow path, nearly invisible unless you knew where to look. Corin guided them inside. Cool shadows replaced the desert's harsh light, and Aya finally slid off Marcus's back to walk again. At the canyon's end stood a stone arch, carved with faded symbols. Vines clung to its surface, glowing faintly in the dark. Aya's steps slowed as her eyes widened. "What is this place?" Corin's voice softened with reverence. "The sanctuary of Lysera. The last refuge of your ancestors." The arch pulsed faintly as Aya approached. When she reached out her hand, the stone glowed brighter, responding to her touch. The vines shifted, curling around her fingers like they recognized her. Marcus stared, his chest tightening. It reacts to her," Corin nodded, "because she carries the blood of queens. The sanctuary only opens to those of the royal line. She is the first to return in generations." Aya pulled her hand back quickly, stepping closer to Marcus. "I don't want this," she whispered. "I never asked to be a queen." Marcus knelt in front of her, resting his hands gently on her shoulders. "Aya, listen to me. You don't have to be anything you don't want. You're not just a queen. You're Aya, and that's enough. But if this place can keep you safe, then we'll use it." Aya's silver eyes searched his face. Slowly, she nodded. The sanctuary doors creaked open, revealing a cavern lit by pools of glowing water and crystal pillars stretching high into the rock. The air hummed softly, filled with a presence that felt alive. Aya gasped, awe flickering across her face. Corin guided them deeper. "This is where your ancestors ruled before the council betrayed them. Here their memory lives on, and here perhaps you will find the strength to claim your place." Marcus frowned. "And if she doesn't want to?" Corin's eyes darkened. "Then she will always run, and the council will never stop chasing. Even now, word of her survival spreads. There are those who will want her dead, and others who will want to use her." Aya hugged herself tightly. "I just want to be Aya, not a queen, not a symbol." Marcus placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then that's who you'll be. As long as I'm here, you choose what you are." For a moment, the girl who had once eaten scraps like a dog stood taller. She wasn't ready to be a queen. But with Marcus beside her, she believed she could be something more than the broken child she once was. Yet outside the canyon, shadows moved. The council's enforcers had tracked their trail across the desert. Horns echoed again, faint but closer now. The sanctuary had given Aya hope, but danger was already closing in. The sanctuary of Lysera was quiet, its glowing pools casting soft blue light against the crystal pillars. Aya sat near one of them, her small fingers tracing ripples across the surface. Marcus watched her from a distance, his hand resting near the knife on his belt. For the first time since leaving the city, she looked almost peaceful. But peace never lasted long. The faint echo of horns drifted down the canyon. Marcus stiffened. "They've found us." Aya froze, her silver eyes wide. Corin, the old-robed guide, closed his eyes as if expecting it. "I told you the council never stops." Marcus's jaw clenched. "Then we fight." The sanctuary doors shuddered as heavy blows landed against them. Cracks formed in the stone arch as the enforcers outside forced their way in. Aya's chest tightened. She wanted to hide, but something inside her whispered to stand. With a final crash, the doors burst open. Dozens of armored enforcers stormed inside, their weapons gleaming in the glow. At their front was the same commander from the city, his voice booming through the cavern. "Silver-eyed child, by order of the council, you are to be taken alive, or dead if you resist." Marcus drew his knife, standing in front of Aya. "Over my body," the commander sneered. "That can be arranged." Before the enforcers surged forward, Corin raised his staff. His voice carried power, commanding the chamber. "Wait!" Marcus glanced back, surprised. "What are you doing?" Corin's eyes gleamed strangely. "What I must." He turned toward the commander and bowed. "The child is here as promised." Aya's heart stopped. "Promised?" Marcus's blood ran cold. "You betrayed us." Corin's voice shook, but he did not look at Aya. "I served her family once, yes. But I also lost everything for them. The council offered me life if I delivered what remained. Forgive me, child. But I cannot carry the burden any longer." Aya stumbled back, betrayal cutting deeper than any blade. The one who had told her she was more than scraps had delivered her to those who wanted her erased. Marcus's rage exploded. "You coward." He lunged at Corin, but the old man raised his staff, knocking him back with a surge of energy. The enforcers advanced, seizing Marcus and driving him to the ground. Aya screamed, struggling to run to him, but two soldiers grabbed her arms. The commander smirked. "So this is the lost bloodline. Pathetic." Aya thrashed, her silver eyes blazing with tears. "Let him go." The commander laughed. "Look at her. She thinks she commands us. You are nothing but a stray." Those words cut deep, echoing the insults Aya had heard her whole life. Scraps. Dog. Nothing. But this time, something inside her refused to accept it. Her body trembled, not with fear, but with something stronger. The glowing pools around the sanctuary began to ripple violently. The crystal pillars hummed. The enforcers looked around, uneasy. The commander barked, "Hold her," but Aya's voice rang out louder than it had ever been. "I am not nothing." Light erupted from her silver eyes, blasting outward. The enforcers holding her were thrown across the chamber, their armor cracking against stone. The ground shook, and the sanctuary itself responded to her cry. Symbols along the walls lit up, ancient carvings glowing as if alive. Marcus shielded his face from the light, awe flooding through him. "Aya!" The commander staggered, fury twisting his features. "Impossible. She's awakening." Aya stood, trembling but defiant, her rags fluttering in the energy swirling around her. "You called me a dog. You called me trash. But she pointed at Marcus, "he saw me as a queen, and I will never bow to you." The surge of power knocked half the enforcers to their knees. Their weapons clattered to the ground as Aya's energy pressed against them like a storm. Corin staggered, his staff slipping from his hand. His voice cracked. She is stronger than even her ancestors." The commander roared in anger and charged, blade raised. Marcus lunged forward, blocking the strike with his knife. The two clashed, sparks flying as Aya's light pulsed brighter. Filling the chamber, with one final burst, Aya unleashed a wave of energy that hurled the commander and his soldiers back through the broken doors. Silence followed, broken only by their groans outside the canyon. Aya collapsed to her knees, gasping. Marcus rushed to her side, pulling her into his arms. "Aya, are you all right?" She nodded weakly, tears streaking her face. I felt it. Like the sanctuary gave me strength." Marcus held her tightly, his voice rough. "That's because you are strong. Stronger than all of them." Corin crawled forward, shame written across his face. "Child, forgive me. I thought I could betray you, but now I see. The prophecy lives in you." "I was blind." Aya looked at him with tired but steady eyes. "I don't forgive you, but I won't waste my strength on hate. Leave." The old man bowed his head, broken, and disappeared into the shadows. Marcus helped Aya to her feet. Together they looked at the glowing sanctuary, still alive with her energy. For the first time, Aya didn't just feel like the girl who ate scraps. She felt like something more. But outside the canyon, horns blared again, louder, closer, and more furious than before. The battle was not over. It had only begun. The horns outside the canyon grew louder, a chorus of rage echoing through the desert night. Marcus tightened his grip on the knife at his side. Standing at the sanctuary's broken, his grip on the knife at his side. standing at the sanctuary's broken entrance. Behind him, Aya leaned against a crystal pillar, her silver eyes still glowing faintly from the power she had unleashed. She looked so small, her body trembling from exhaustion, but in Marcus's eyes she had never looked stronger. "They'll come again," Marcus said quietly. "And they won't stop until you're gone." Aya swallowed hard. "Then we don't run anymore." Her voice was soft but steady, filled with a determination Marcus had never heard before. He turned to her, searching her face. "Aya," she shook her head. "All my life they made me crawl. They made me eat scraps. They called me nothing. But you saw me. You gave me strength, and now I see it too." She straightened, her small frame trembling but resolute. "If they fear me, then I'll give them something to fear. I am Aya of Lysera." Marcus's chest swelled with pride. "Then I'll stand with you, always." The sanctuary doors burst open again. Enforcers poured in, dozens this time, their armor clattering as they filled the chamber. At their center strode the commander, his blade gleaming, fury in his eyes. "You dare defy the council?" he roared. "You are nothing but a mistake." Aya stepped forward, her silver eyes blazing. "No, I am the heir you tried to erase," the enforcers charged. Marcus rushed to meet them, his knife flashing as he fought with desperate strength. He moved like a man possessed, blocking, striking, and throwing himself in front of Aya whenever a blade came too close. Each cut and bruise he took only fueled his resolve. Aya raised her hands. The crystal pillars responded, glowing brighter. Energy pulsed through the floor, knocking several enforcers off their feet. The sanctuary itself seemed alive, answering her will. The commander pushed through the chaos, his blade aimed directly at Aya. Marcus lunged to block him, their weapons clashing with a sharp ring. Pain shot through Marcus's arm as the commander's strength drove him back. Aya cried out, "Marcus!" He gritted his teeth, pushing back with all he had. "Stay behind me." But Aya stepped forward instead. She placed her small hand on Marcus's shoulder, and suddenly, energy surged through him. His body felt lighter, stronger, as if her strength had flowed into him. With a roar, he forced the commander back, knocking the blade from his hands. The commander stumbled, eyes wide. "Impossible!" Aya's voice rang through the chamber. "Not impossible. Human and alien together. Stronger than you ever dreamed." The remaining enforcers faltered, fear flickering in their eyes. The sanctuary's light grew blinding, symbols along the walls shifting to show Aya standing tall, a crown of light above her head, Marcus at her side, and the people kneeling not in chains but in choice. The commander fell to his knees, trembling. "The prophecy," Aya's voice was calm, steady, and regal. "You cannot kill what was meant to rise. You tried to bury me, but I am here. I am not your stray. I am not your shame. I am your queen." The enforcers dropped their weapons, bowing their heads one by one. The chamber fell silent except for Aya's breathing. Marcus stood beside her, battered but unbroken. He looked at the kneeling soldiers, then at Aya. "Looks like they finally see what I saw all along." Aya turned to him, her silver eyes shimmering with tears. "I couldn't have done it without you." He smiled faintly, wiping the blood from his lip. "You did it, Aya. You proved them wrong. You proved yourself." The commander raised his head slowly. "What will you do with us?" Aya hesitated, then lifted her chin. "I will not be like the council. I will not rule with fear. Go back. Tell them the blood of Lysera lives. Tell them their chains will break. The age of scraps is over." The enforcers bowed deeper, their armor clattering as they rose and filed out of the sanctuary. For the first time, Aya was not hunted. She was recognized. When the chamber was quiet again, Aya leaned against Marcus, exhaustion finally overwhelming her. He caught her gently, lowering her to the floor. "You're safe now," he whispered. Aya looked up at him, her small voice trembling but certain. "Not just safe, free." Marcus brushed a strand of silver hair from her face. "And one day you'll show them what a real queen is." Aya closed her eyes, her lips curving into the faintest smile. The girl who had once crawled for scraps in the dirt was gone. In her place stood a queen, fragile but fierce, frightened but unbreakable. And beside her stood the human who had seen her worth when the desert sunrise bathed the world in gold. The sanctuary of Lysera stood silent, its great doors sealed once more. Inside, the air still hummed with Aya's power, though the echoes of battle had faded. Enforcers who once sought her life now bowed before her, waiting for orders. Aya stood among them, her silver eyes glowing softly. She looked far too small to command warriors, yet her voice carried the weight of truth. "I will not rule through fear," she said, her tone clear and steady. "If you serve me, it is by choice. If you cannot, then go. But know this, no child will starve in my world again." The enforcers exchanged uncertain glances. Slowly, some removed their helmets and placed them on the ground in surrender. Others, their loyalty still tied to the council, rose and left, vanishing into the canyon's shadows. Aya did not stop them. She only watched, her shoulders straight despite the exhaustion pulling at her. Marcus leaned against one of the crystal pillars, his arm bandaged from the fight. His face was pale, but his eyes never left Aya. He had seen her grow from a starving girl into something more, and now she was becoming exactly what he had told her she could be. When the last soldier departed, Aya turned back to him. "I don't know if I can do this," she whispered, the strength in her voice breaking now that only he could hear. "They'll come again. The council won't stop." Marcus pushed himself upright and walked to her, resting a hand gently on her shoulder. "Then let them come. You're not alone anymore. You've got me, always." Her small hand reached up to cover his. For a moment she was Aya the child again, not Aya the queen. But the moment passed quickly as Corin emerged from the shadows of the sanctuary. Aya stiffened, her silver eyes narrowing. "You betrayed me. Why are you still here?" The old man bowed deeply, his voice heavy with guilt. "Because I must atone. My betrayal nearly destroyed you, but seeing your strength, it reminded me of what your family once stood for. Let me serve again, not as your protector, but as your guide." Marcus's hand drifted toward his knife, but Aya stopped him with a shake of her head. "If you lie again, I'll know," she said firmly. Corin nodded. "I would expect nothing less." They rested that night within the sanctuary. Aya sat beside the glowing pools, her reflection staring back at her. The silver in her eyes seemed brighter now, like stars trapped in her gaze. Marcus sat nearby, sharpening his blade, though his eyes often drifted to her. "Back on Earth," he said suddenly, "we had stories about kings and queens, but the ones worth remembering weren't the ones who sat on thrones. They were the ones who fought for their people, who stood when no one else would." Aya tilted her head, listening. He smiled faintly. "That's you. Doesn't matter if you're scared. Being scared and still standing. That's what makes a queen." Aya looked back at her reflection. For the first time, she didn't see a starving girl. She saw someone who could lead. At dawn, the three of them left the sanctuary. Aya insisted they return to the city. Not to hide, but to face it. The people stared as they entered Kalor's streets, whispers rippling like fire. "That's her, the silver-eyed child. Alive?" Aya walked with her head high, Marcus beside her, Corin following at a respectful distance. The marketplace, where she had once crawled for scraps, fell silent as she passed. The same merchants who had mocked her now lowered their eyes. One woman, trembling, stepped forward and placed a piece of bread in Aya's hands. Aya stared at it, then offered it to a hungry child nearby. The crowd gasped. "She gives even when she has nothing," someone whispered. In that moment, Aya's reign began, not from a throne, but from an act of kindness. But far away in the council's towering halls, fury burned. The High Counselor slammed his hand against the table, his voice shaking with rage. "The bloodline lives. The girl defies us. If she unites the people, our rule ends." Another counselor hissed. "Then we must destroy her. Send assassins. Spread fear. If the people see her as hope, we'll turn her into fear instead." The council chamber buzzed with schemes and shadows. Aya had won one battle, but the war for her future had only begun. Back in the city, as Marcus stood watch beside her, Aya whispered softly, more to herself than anyone else. "I will not crawl again. I will not starve again, and I will not let anyone else suffer as I did." Marcus heard her and placed a hand on his blade. "Then we'll fight for that together." Above them, the twin moons of Kalor glowed, silent witnesses to the rise of a queen no one had expected, but one the galaxy would never forget.